Welcome to What is Going On for new thought from the edge of Om. Each week on Om Time's flagship radio show, veteran broadcaster, author, and media consultant Sandie Sedgbeer conducts thought-provoking interviews with inspirational authors, artists, musicians, scientists, speakers, and filmmakers who are working at the point where spirituality and science meet consciousness at the very edge of Om. Here is your host, Sandie Sedgbeer.
Hello. According to this week's guest, the universe launches us at birth as perfect beings on the path to fulfillment, but deceptive values from cultures distort our connection to the cosmos and cause us to diverge from this path. Our efforts to restore ourselves to the true meaning of our existence are the basis for human development. Joining me today to share insights on the restoration of our true self from her two books, Through the Rabbit Hole, Exploring Energy and the Shamanic Journey, and Becoming Yourself, The Journey from Head to Heart, is shamanic practitioner, licensed professional counselor, hypnotherapist, and Reiki master Jan Engels-Smith, who is founder of the Light Song School of first century shamanism and energy medicine, and a leading edge teacher in manifestation. Jan Engels-Smith, welcome.
Hello. Hi. Thank you.
So you started your personal quest for understanding through science, which led you to psychology, which led you to spiritualism, which ultimately took you all the way back to your earlier scientific studies. And you said that you now understand that all of your studies are one study, the art and science of universal consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about how this journey began for you.
Well, the journey began actually in a very, I guess, in a shamanic way, but it's not a way that I say is necessary for people, because a lot of people will hear my story and then they'll think, oh, that has to happen to me. But I had an apparition where a being actually appeared in my living room, a woman, an old, elderly Native woman. She was standing there and I walked in and I said, who are you? What are you doing in my living room? And she said, I am your grandmother. I am you. I am your sister. I am the earth, which was not what I was expecting her to say. And she said, I've come to ask you to learn the ways. But if you accept this, your life will forever be changed. And so there was no way that I was going to accept that. I was going to say, no, you need to leave. Because I want to give you a little bit of background here. I was living in Dallas, Texas, which was in the Bible Belt, and I was very involved in the church. In fact, I was thinking about getting my doctorate in theology. I was very, very involved in it. And I loved it. I loved the whole idea. And I had not been exposed to anything metaphysical ever in my life. Native, nothing. The only thing I had seen native was on TV, that type of thing. So when she was saying this, I had no concept of what she was talking about or who she was or what any of this meant. And like I said, I was going to say, no, you need to leave. But I heard this crow calling outside the window. And instead of hearing caw, 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 I was hearing trust, trust, trust. And so I said yes. And she pulled out a pipe, which I didn't have any idea of what a pipe was in Native tradition. And we smoked it, which kind of seals the deal. It makes a contract in a very cosmic way. And she gave me my medicine. And she said, you are carrying the medicine of the North, which is healing, wisdom, and love. And then I heard this sound, like somebody was coming into the room, like possibly my husband or something. And I turned to look to see who was coming in and turned back and she was gone. And I was left like, what just happened? Now, also some background here. I was a psychotherapist. I was working in the disassociative ward of the hospital, specializing in multiple personality disorder. So I also had infant twins and a 2-year-old. So my stress levels and my listening to quite extensive otherworldly stories all day and watching people shift from altar to altar, which is the term that you use. I had a very different, I guess, unique sense of what is possible in the world. And that's what that training taught me. It was a great foundational teaching or segue into shamanism. However, when I started telling my family and my friends about this, they just thought I had really lost it. And here comes a truck. I don't know if that makes a difference or not. Can you
Okay.
hear that?
That's all right. We'll just note the time. I can hear it, yeah. That's okay. I'm just going to see if I can do that thing that I wanted to do while it's... Give me let me know when it's gone.
Okay. I think it's gone.
You think it's gone? Okay, good.
Okay.
I can't find that thing. Okay, that's all right. I'll find this point and we will just cut that out. Do you remember what you were saying?
Yes.
Okay, do you just want to kind of start the beginning of that bit? I mean, you talked about your training as being perfect foundation for this.
Sure. My friends and family really thought that I was off base. They thought I had too much stress, that I was breaking down because of my job. And I lost a lot of friends. I mean, I was literally asked to leave my Sunday school class, that I wasn't a fit anymore for it. Looking at this post my training, it's actually called a shamanic dismemberment, where you are dismembered, literally, your whole life falls apart. And the reason for this, the purpose of it, is so that you can remember who you actually are. So it's a practice that's done. You can do it in a journey, dismembering all the time, to let go of things that you're attached to and various things like that, to keep you energetically clean. Or they can happen in your life spontaneously, which is what this was. It was a horrible time in my life. I am a very, very social person. I love my friends. I love social events, entertaining, all those things. They were all stripped from me. I literally thought that I would have a cross burning in my front yard at one time. Because again, I'm in the Bible Belt of our country. It did not go over well. And there's many times that I thought, well, why not just say I must have been dreaming? But I couldn't. I had said yes to something, and it felt like there was something more there. I can't describe it. I don't remember that thinking, to remember the words, except that I was distressed and overcome with grief and depression. In the meantime, somewhere in there, I had a dream. And in the dream, there was a voice that said, "You need to move to the Northwest. The vortexes are changing in your country." I didn't know what in the world a vortex was, but I said, okay. And I remember saying to my husband, by now we had infant twins. And I remember saying to him, "We need to move to the Northwest. I had a dream." And he just looked at me and he said, "Jan, enough. No, enough." I said, "Okay, let's just go up and visit." My best friend from my childhood had just moved to Portland, Oregon. I said, "Let's just go up and visit." So we did. And sure enough, he magically, we say magically, landed a job of his dreams. And we were there 3 months after our visit. So, and I mean, they even paid for our move, you know. And then during that time, I was at a conference with my husband. There was a bookstore that had a display in the lobby. He came up and got me and said, "Jan, come down and take a look at some of these books. You might be interested in them." I went down there and they were all on reincarnation, channeling, various metaphysical topics. I asked the clerk, I said, do you know anything about visions or apparitions? And she said, no, but I know somebody that does. And she handed me this woman's card. So I called this woman and she said, you need to come in for a reading. And she channeled angels. I did. And this woman is still a friend of mine, 35 years later. I went in for the reading, and when she was in her channeling state, the woman got up and went to a bookshelf and got the book Soul Retrieval and handed it to me. And she said, this is your life. And that was the beginning of it. And so I then started my training, and a whole series of things happened that after the move, I helped somebody with an event that was for Native Americans. This elder just took a shining to me and asked me to become part of his family. And so I was adopted into a Lakota family. And, everything just changed. Completely new version of myself emerged.
And thankfully, your husband was right there with you.
Yes, he was. He was an extraordinary man. He has passed, but was my foundation and always respected me and really marveled at what was happening and wasn't challenged by it at all. He was an extremely intelligent Mensa member, very, very bright, and was not challenged by my different way of looking at the world.
Which is exactly what you needed when everybody else was walking away.
Yes, God, I don't know what I would have done. Yeah.
You trained with Sandra Ingerman,
I did.
Michael Harner.
Mhm.
I mean, with all the names, all the wonderful people. And now you write about first century shamanism, which implies that there's something different about first century shamanism than what came before.
Yes.
What is the difference?
What I have learned is that the concept, old shamanism was based in many of the attitudes that people have, that you could trick things, you could maneuver and manipulate and possibly even lie to get your needs met. And that was happening in shamanism. It was sort of a power oriented philosophy, like who's got the most power. It was very competitive and still is in certain organizations around the world. I learned in my work with the spirits that these are man-made concepts, that they do not exist in the spirit world, and that there's a benevolence that is divine. It doesn't have any of the emotions or the needs that we express in humans. To me, that was the 21st. And so I had to abort a lot of the things that I learned at the foundation, because the foundation for shamanic studies, their teachings was really based in some of the styles and the things that we did in there as techniques, like soul, thief, soul stealing. How do you get the soul back? Well, you can do some trickery and you can do this. And it was like, no, it doesn't work that way. And I feel as if my work has really been based on bringing a newer version of shamanism. We have evolved as human beings, and our concepts need to evolve with us. We can't hold on to those old things like that. We live in a new world. People are expecting new things. And I believe that one of the things that we need to understand is our own divinity. And that's what soul retrieval is really based in. But then a lot of the techniques didn't stand up to that. And so one of my gigs is really evolving shamanism into 21st century understandings and concepts of love and light, and how all these things have this huge impact on us when we embrace them fully and understand our own divinity, we become well, along with new techniques, doing the techniques differently. There's a depossession that we use the term for. And if you look at depossession in the church or even in old shamanism, it was a power over a possessing spirit. You took charge, you had command. And it's like, that spirit, that possessing being is also a divine light. It's just misplaced.
Yes.
So you don't want to take power over. You want to do a massive healing for both. You want to do it for your client as well as the being that's caught there. Now, that would never have been understood in old shamanism. It's a understanding, again, of we all carry a heart light. We're all divine, with or without a body. And things need to be respected that way and understood that way so that you can have a win-win situation. It's not a win-lose. It's a win-win.
You founded Light Song School 1994, which is a long time ago, and you developed the first energy medicine curricula, so that people coming in could, go from, I don't know, complete newbie to getting a bachelor's, a master's, and even a doctorate degree in shamanism. What made you decide to do that? Because that must have been quite a challenge. There are lots of schools of shamanism out there.
Yes.
But you were offering something completely different. Did you find that hard going at first?
Oh, it was tremendously difficult. It took us years, probably at least 10, 12 years of research and things to do this. My objective in it, though, was I wanted to make shamanism readily available for anybody, which meant that we needed to be able to have insurances cover it, which is a very needed thing, at least in the United States, because paying out of pocket for services can be cost prohibitive to a lot of people. Well, the only way that you can do that is to have a curriculum that is standardized. You have to be able to prove what you're teaching and that everybody is getting the same training. So that's what we worked on, to really qualify the person coming out of our programs is really cream of the crop. They don't have a hodgepodge. They can't randomly go, I'm going to go to this teacher and learn this, and I'm going to go to that teacher and learn this, and now I'm going to say that I can teach something. No. You had to, have documented results of your work. Like for our practitioners, when they were getting their masters, they had to do over 150 documented cases. And one of the important things for me was, what did you learn? What did you learn as a practitioner different than what I taught you?
Yeah.
Because my goal was always that they become better than me. I want you to shine, because when you shine, then you're having results out there that are also shining. Soon after we started the curriculum, we were asked to do a study on PTSD for vets, mostly coming home from Afghanistan at the time. And we were contacted by a major teaching hospital out here called Oregon OHSU. It's a big hospital. And I asked them, I said, why did you pick us out of all the different shamanic bases, thinking the foundation, why did you pick us? And they said, because you had a curriculum that we knew who we were getting. We knew that all the different practitioners that were going to be doing this study were trained the same way and going to be using the same techniques. And so that was important to me. Credentials are important. Training is important. I see ourselves as we are doctors of the soul. Yes. And you have doctors for mental health, physical health, emotional health. But the soul is the most important part of you. It is the most important part of you. And shamans, good shamans, are doctors of the soul.
You have a number of case histories that you share with us. There was one in particular that I'm sure everybody would be interested in, and that was the one with Jim, who had made a commitment to John Lennon. Would you
Yes,
share that one with us?
absolutely. In shamanism, we often will travel to another lifetime, a past life. In those days, we use the word past. I don't use it anymore because of what I learned in this journey. But you will travel to a past life to see where an issue actually started in a person. Might have been this life, it might not have been. Okay, because we carry all of these lives inside of us in our inner akasha. And akasha is a word that we use for the records of life. And so we have a big akasha that's sort of universal, and you have an internal akasha that carries your records. So I knew that going into other lifetimes could be very beneficial. And you can heal whatever was happening in that version of the client. And then in this version, the person you're working with, they actually change because there's an extension of what happens in those lifetimes influences what's happening in this lifetime. In Jim's case, he contacted me because he was struggling with a decision. When John Lennon died, I don't remember the year of that, but when John Lennon died, he felt that he had John Lennon's soul enter him. And he was just a teenager, but he just said, all of a sudden I was filled with this sense of John. And he was a musician. And so he decided that he had to dedicate his life to doing Beatles standards, which he did much into his mid-40s, something like that. Maybe he's in the 40s. But there came a time when he said, I'm ready to hang up my Sergeant Pepper's suit. But he was struggling with it because he felt like he had dedicated his life to John to keep John alive in the minds of people and various other ways. He contacted me to get out of the struggle, like what could we do, So I said, well, let's do some journeys and see what the spirits say. I had no idea. This was early on in my career, actually. It was kind of fascinating. But one of the first things that happened was I contacted John Lennon, was like, whoa, hello, on the other side. And they then started showing me a series of images. They're metaphorical images. But John said, I want you to note there's another version of Jim's reason to be connected to me. So the first imagery they showed me was that Jim was on his knees crying and, sobbing, kind of with his hands over his face. And John walked up to him and hugged him very intimately, just really hugged him. And then the next image, they were flying through the air, sort of superimposed on top of each other, with their limbs out, but flying through the air this way. And John's head was maybe a foot or so in front of Jim's. And then the next image they showed me was this spherical ball of light out in space, and we were looking down at the earth, and it was rolling. Now, one of the nice things about my spirits is they tell me what all these things mean. Not everybody's do, but they explain things to me, so that was very helpful, and I asked them about these images. They said that in the first image with Jim crying, was that he was a drug addict. He was a very, very bad drug addict. And that him dedicating himself to John, he actually was saving himself. John was saving him. He was keeping him clean. He was keeping him on purpose. He was giving him a purpose to do in life. The second image was where they were superimposed on each other. This one just blew me away. Was that John and Jim were the same soul incarnating in the same time period on Earth. Excuse me, John was about 20 years older than Jim. So it showed his head out a little bit further than, but that the same soul incarnating on Earth at basically the same timeline. That was such a huge teaching for me. And then the third one was about, again, this teaching that time is holographic. It is not linear. This circular ball of light looking at the earth, that all lifetimes are happening simultaneously for everyone. And they went on to say that you could actually look at every person on the planet and see a different version of yourself. Now, to me, that just, my head still has a hard time wrapping around that, although I teach it all the time. But it's a good practice to realize that we are these versions of other people. And then they ended up with John saying, I am he and he is me and we are all together. We just started cracking up, because here's these words from I Am the Walrus, and John was kind of singing that to me on the other side. And he said, this is the way it works. And so it just felt like this incredible experience in teaching for me what I should relate to others, how it works, this incarnation, because I didn't know anything about incarnation again. This was very beginning of my career. I was finished with my training, but it was the beginning of my career. And we don't cover that stuff so much in the foundation. I was at the foundation when they were pretty new. There's been a lot of progress since those early days.
How did Jim respond to that?
It was totally enlivening for him. He was able to do this in a way with no guilt, with no shame. And he has since become an extraordinary counselor for drug addiction and uses all of these things that came out of the journey and kind of native teachings and stuff. There was more to it than I'm sharing in his practice. And he has made himself quite a career.
It's a lovely story. We're going to take a short break now. You're listening to What is Going On. I'm Sandie Sedgbeer, and my guest today is shamanic practitioner, licensed professional counselor, hypnotherapist, and Reiki master, Jan Engels-Smith. And we're discussing insights from her 2 books, Through the Rabbit Hole, Exploring Energy in the Shamanic Journey, and Becoming Yourself, The Journey from Head to Heart. We'll be back with more from Jan Engels-Smith after the break. Stay tuned.
Hello, I'm Sandie Sedgbeer, host of Times flagship radio show What is Going On, and as an author, editor and 13 times book judge who's read thousands of books and interviewed hundreds of authors, I'm constantly asked what's really worth reading and what's not. So I created the No BS Spiritual Book Club to help you save time and money by picking the brains of discerning names who've walked this path before you. There's no catch, no fees and no BS, just an ever-growing library of 10 best spiritual book lists from some of your favourite authors and teachers, plus free book excerpts, audios and video interviews with people like Don Miguel Ruiz Jr., David G., Lee Harris, Mark Nepo and more. From well-known classics to hidden gems you've never heard of, it's the only no BS guide to the best spiritual books to enlighten your journey of self-discovery. So why not join the club? Get inspired and save money at the nobsspiritualbookclub.com.
Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
Everything that we do, we can do in a contemplative manner. Through the art of contemplation, you can use the gene keys in a really powerful way. Gene keys is basically the code book of life. In the gene keys, the book is made up of these three levels: shadows, gifts, and siddhis. And the journey is through those three levels, kind of unpicking of the shadow states, the releasing of the gifts, and then the embodying of this higher consciousness called the siddhi. And the siddhis are very exalted words. And it's not like we kind of suddenly are all these exalted Christ-like beings, but we have flashes and illuminations along the journey. And the more we get stuck into the journey, the more illumination comes to us, because the more we're releasing the light from in these codes inside our DNA. So all those revelations are inside us. So the contemplative way is the inner way.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Welcome back. Jan Engels-Smith, you founded Lightsong School in 1994, and you have said that its lineage is Atlantean, Egyptian. I think there was a Lemurian. What does that actually mean?
You opened up a big subject here. Yeah, it's a beautiful...
Give us a short answer.
Okay. It's the mystery schools, and I was being told by the spirits that Lightsong is the carrier of the lineage of the mystery schools, and I denied this. I could not accept it from the spirits. It was too big, too much, too whatever for me to be able to say, oh yeah, I got this in a journey. And so I was denying it. We have a council meeting that we would meet once a month. A Lightsong council of 12 people would meet at my house. And this one day, one of the council members walked in and she said, Jan, the spirits contacted me through Lady of the Lake, who is one of my beings. And they said, you're not listening to a message that they're giving you. Lightsong is the next carrier of the mystery schools. No one knew of these journeys that I was having. I didn't say a peep to anyone. And I just started sobbing. And so I said, okay, And then after the council meeting that night, when I was going to bed, I said, I know that this came through this other person. I know that you're trying to get my attention, but I just need one more sign, just one more sign before I take on this mantle. So the next morning I got up and I opened my computer, and there was a screenshot from NASA on my computer of this star system actually it's in, I can't think of the one that's the M, the crown, Cassiopeia. And it was of a star system, and this star system looked almost identical. I mean, I would say it's identical to my logo of Lightsong. And they said, do you get it now? And I said, okay, on this mantle. And so we then have dedicated one of our classes that is a requirement for your training to go through the mystery schools and to learn about those things. That last one was Avalon. So it's Atlantis, Lemuria, Egypt, and Avalon. So that's the story. They get their point across.
Of all the case histories, I mean, you must have had so many different clients, so many incredible stories like Jim's. Is there one that stands out beyond all others for you that you'd like to share?
Well, yes, there's one that I think really tries to explain or magnify how the spirits are consistently trying to help us. The last story about the mystery schools is one. Like, I could not take that information. My ego just wouldn't let me do it. It was too big. But they're insistent. They're trying to help humanity. And in trying to help humanity, they need us as practitioners to do the work, to be the mouth, the hands, the voice, all those things. They have to use our bodies because we live in a physical world. They cannot do it without us. There was a case that, again, this was very early on. I'm going to say it was in the first year of my private practice as a practitioner, shamanic practitioner. A woman brought me her child that was having night terrors. And night terrors are a scary thing. I mean, you cannot wake the person up. They moan and groan like they're being tortured. And the more you shake them or you try to wake them up, the deeper they go into their experience. And in psychology, there is no cure for them. We put people on drugs that, are anti-hallucinogenic. They flatline you. They just take your spark away because they're just trying to control your mind. Anyway, she brought me her child and she said, "Can you do anything with this?" And I was like, "I'll try." I will try. I said, "I can do a soul retrieval on him and see what happens." We get into this journey, and the first thing I see is this little African pygmy kind of person. He was very animated. He was very large. He had grass pom-poms around his wrists, grass hair, grass around his feet. He was stomping, and he had a like a not a sword, but like a spear, and he was shaking it at me, just yelling at me in some sort of African gibberish that I had no idea what he was saying. My spirit said to me, "This child has a curse on him in another lifetime. And that curse is acting out now as night terrors. That's how it's expressing itself." And they said, "You have to unravel the curse." I said, "I don't know how to do that. That wasn't in our training. I have no idea how to do that." And they said, "We do. Just do what we tell you to do." I said, "Okay." So they told me to say something. I don't even remember what it was, but I did. And the next thing I knew, this little pygmy guy just became deflated. It's like all the air went out of him. He shrunked over, dropped his spear, and just sulked away, walked away. I did the rest of the soul retrieval for the child, brought him back a spiritual power animal, and did the work. So when they were leaving, I told his mom, I said, "I have no idea if this worked or not." I was just being guided by what the spirit said. Keep me posted. Well, sure enough, the child has never had another night terror, and he's in his 20s or 30s now. In fact, I just talked with her last year, and she said, "I just want you to know." But anyway, the point being, I was in my office and I was cleaning my tools, my various things with sage. And all of a sudden I hear this bang boom thing out in the other room. And I opened the door and walked out. And I had an African mask on the wall with grass hair. I've been collecting indigenous, mostly African art since I was 20 years old. For some reason, I just had a passion for it. And this thing had jumped off the wall and slid under the dining room table on a wood floor. So I looked at it and I picked it up and I said, "So what do you know about night terrors?" Now, where did that question come from? But I knew that it was trying to get my attention. I mean, it literally jumped off the wall. And so I took it in my office and I did a journey with it. And he said, "I'm your protector for this. I came into your life years ago and I am your protector because you were really in a very precarious situation. You should not have been doing this yourself. And I will make you invisible. And then I will do the work when you find yourself in this situation again." So he became an ally of mine right then. So the next thing, it's about 4:00 in the afternoon at this time, and Oprah was going to come on. I thought, I've got a few minutes before my kids come home from school. I'm going to turn on Oprah. So what's the conversation? Night terrors. And isn't that amazing? So they had a team of psychiatrists. They had parents of children with night terrors. They had adults and their spouses, this whole staff of people. But the topic is that there's no cure for them. And what do we do? And I realized right then that this was a huge message from the spirits to us as practitioners and to really everyone, that we are barking up the wrong tree with our remedies here to really help these people. We need to look in other lifetimes at curses predominantly. And that's almost always what I have found with night terrors, that they are a curse, although I invite other people that are practitioners to do their own research and see what they're coming up with. But it could be a whole field for somebody to go into if they wanted to advertise it that way, because this was directly intervention from the spirits of, this is how you heal this. And that's what the message that they're always trying to give to us. This is how you heal this. This
Yeah.
is how you heal this.
We see it a lot in young children. I mean, I remember my grandson having them, and all he would do is shout out, "You left me there, you left me there, in the dark, you left me there," and his parents, but it was the same thing all the time. And, I mean, given the number of lifetimes we've had, I would think that we are all riddled with curses, or trauma or something.
Yes, that is true. And that is exactly, Sandie, why it's important for people to understand that shamanism is it's the oldest healing modality known on the planet, documented by National Geographic. It is the oldest healing. And when we stopped taking care of the soul, now we're taking things through lifetimes. Okay. But in the indigenous days, these things were taken care of immediately. There's an understanding that a lot of these languages, indigenous languages, we call them singing languages. And you really notice it. I don't know if you've traveled anything into India, Tibet, or Nepal, but the people have songs for everything. They do in Lakota also, these tribal languages. They have songs for everything. Cutting the wheat or plowing the field or whatever they're doing. So the idea of soul loss was that when you have soul loss, you're not singing. You stop singing. And so this was noticed immediately by others. They're not singing. And I always thought that that was just a little poetic way of describing it. But then as I learned more about indigenous cultures, I realized, oh yeah, they weren't written languages, they were singing languages.
Yeah.
And so a situation was taken care of within 3 days usually of the problem. And so your soul was literally next to you. That's where we get the term, I'm just beside myself. You are. You have moved out of your body and you're beside yourself. So the process of healing was quite quick and easy. I mean, you just, let's put it back in. And it was identified very quickly. But now it could be years or lifetimes before anything is taken care of. So the job of the practitioner is much more complex now than it used to be. Because again, you have to be able to go into all these other lifetimes. But Soul Retrieval, those remedies were worldwide, every single culture on this planet, in all 7 continents. It's documented.
We've got about 9 minutes left. I want to talk about manifestation, because the story you told of going to Oregon, I mean, is a wonderful story of manifestation in action. And you've been teaching manifestation for over 4 decades now. So tell us a little bit about manifestation and what we most need to know, because I think there's been a lot of talk about it ever since, the movie The Secret and the book. But some of that talk has just kind of given it a kind of lightweight, cookie cutter, flavor that isn't working for people.
It's not working because they don't understand what it said. There's a lot of complexity to that program, The Secret, that it goes over a lot of people's heads. And I mean that in a gentle way. I mean, it did mine too. But basically, you cannot not be manifesting. You are manifesting 24/7. We are manifesting machines. We're part of Creator. We are creation beings. And that's one of the things that I understand about learning about the light in people, is how this light is the same as Creator's light, or our soul is the same composition, if you want to use that word, as Creator. What people don't know how to do is to manifest consciously, how to do things that they manifest more of what they want instead of what they don't want. And I am actually doing a gathering right now. It's not even a class. I don't charge for it. It's free. But like giving people tips on, this is how you do it. Let's talk in a group, and I'll listen to your story and I'll show you how this is working in your life. But basically, part of our own evolution, our own becoming yourself, is to learn how to bring your vibration, your frequency of vibration, up to a higher level. The soul is a divine creation. It is a divine being. Okay. It has a very, very high vibration, if you want to look at the terms high and low. Things that would be a match for your soul, if you want to look at words, would be radiance, beauty, sensational, exquisite, loving, appreciation, gratitude. And so just saying those things, you tend to sit back and expand. And the reason your body is responding to that is because those words are a match for the truth of who you are. When you're thinking in your head, don't have, sadness, doesn't work, not enough, the body goes, it's shutting down, just because the vibration, the frequency of vibration of those words are not a match for your truth. And everything is vibration. Everything is a frequency of vibration. Our words, our thoughts, our feelings, our bodies, the earth, the cosmos, everything is a frequency of vibration. And health is when those frequencies are a match for your truth. So when you keep your frequencies high inside of you, you become more healthy. When we do a soul retrieval on you, we are bringing back divine essence that has a very high frequency. It raises your vibration, just getting back that peace. So the trick to manifesting is that you want to take the time to raise your vibration in whatever that is. If you're thinking of words, if you're doing, I have a lot of guided meditations to raise your vibration, just wherever that is, so you can get yourself really high in this vibrating. I call it the embodiment of those words, where you feel it in your fingers, you feel it in your hair, you feel it in your toes. You're just like, oh my God. Then you start envisioning what it is that you want. That means that that desire is a match for who you are. Okay. It will bring you joy. You need to be joy to bring it in. It's always a direct match of frequencies, kind of like tuning forks. You know, a C vibrates with a C. It doesn't vibrate with an A, it vibrates with a C. So if you're down here in a place of desperation, wanting, complaining, doing all the things that we do when we don't have something, you're not a match for your desire at all. And that's one of the most important keys to realize, is that you have got to, if you want something, then you've got to change to get it. If you want somebody to be different, you've got to change in order for them to be different. When you change and bring yourself up their higher version, and if you want to bring in the quantum world, which I don't do in this class, but the quantum world is that higher version of them, then is a match for you. But if you're complaining about them, that's the version you're going to get.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's really exercises on your own becoming, your own awareness, your own spiritual actualization. And in the process of doing that, you just manifest the type of life that you ultimately want. So
I miscalculated the time, and we are actually almost out of time now, I'm afraid. But I think I'm going to have you come back on the show and we can talk further, because I probably only got through, 10% of my questions.
You have lovely questions. Thank you. You bring the best out of me.
Oh, thank you for that, Jan. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Sure. And I will say that if people want to join in on that Manifesting Miracles, they can just email me and I'll put you on the list. We have a great group.
I'm going to sign up.
Yeah. Good.
So if you're curious to learn more about shamanism and how it can improve your life through a divine connection to the spirit realms, check out the training offered at lightsong.net, where you can also get more information on Jan Engels-Smith's books, podcasts, courses, and of course, her free Manifesting Miracles gatherings. I'm Sandie Sedgbeer. I'll be back at the same time next week with another edition of What is Going On. Until then, it's goodbye from me, and thank you again to Jan Engels-Smith.
Thank you.